All right, no music for today's video. We got something kind of vitally important to cover. This is about Bricklink, which you guys may have already heard about this issue, but I got an email from them talking about how they were planning to merge different aspects of the site, essentially different items that people were selling. I have a little bit of a different take on this from other creators, RR Slugger and Duckbricks as well. This is a bad thing, I do agree, but I wanted to talk about why I don't think this is necessarily even good for the sellers, which is going to sound a little bit weird at first, because from an outward perspective, this sounds like something that should essentially make it easier for sellers to list items on this platform to sell, right? If I have a brick, I can list this brick for sale. Easy enough. But it's actually not necessarily easier. It changes things for sure. But the problem is that there are a lot of people who use Bricklink as a resource, both not only to buy items, but also to sort of look up items and find out differences. I recommend another site where you can do this similar thing, rebrickable.com. You can't buy from there, at least not as far as I know, but at the very least you can check out different part variants over the years. In fact, I just found out that I had a piece that's reasonably old in my collection because of Rebrickable. It's a wonderful site, but that's not what this video is about. Bricklink has been a resource for years, probably more than a decade at this point, for many people out there, many sellers, including myself, though technically I don't really use Bricklink to sell, but I am a seller there. That said, what really irritates me about this is that this change is still going to make it difficult for sellers as well. And here's one reason why. If you are a seller with a large store or a popular seller, someone who people have come to time and time again, built up any sort of loyalty with your buyers, with your other sellers as well, and just kind of built your name up around that store. People who have YouTube channels who also have Bricklink stores as well. One of the problems with this is actually going to make it difficult in the sense that people are going to want to reach out. If they know, if someone is looking for a specific variation of an item, and they know which one that they need to fill a specific purpose, but Bricklink no longer differentiates the different variants that have been produced over the years, that's a problem, right? Which means that oftentimes they're going to reach out to you as best they can, and you might have to get back to them. That's more messages, that's more legwork on your end as a seller. It's not to say that this is going to happen a lot, but it will at some point. And all I can imagine here is going out of my way to try and buy something that I know holds up well. I've been very thankful for Technic over the last few years, slowly modifying and changing many of the molds that have been around for decades at this point, because those molds for those decades have been fragile. And it's been lovely to see these newer molds coming out to replace them slowly over time, being made out of different types of plastics even, only to see this start to change. Bricklink already doesn't really differentiate much between some of these, but some of them it does. And to know that I am now going to have to parse out which pieces, whether it's on my end or on someone else's end, if I want to buy from them, to know if the part that they're selling me, is this one going to be fragile or not? Do I really want to reach out and bother them, burden them with something for my build? You know, multiply this by hundreds of people that might buy from you in a month, and this starts to really add up. And it seems like a symptom of something. A little over a year ago, maybe 2 years ago, I don't remember the exact date, but Lego actually purchased Bricklink. In so doing, I was thankful at first because they said basically things weren't going to change, but things did change. To a degree, I do understand it. Lego does have to somewhat control what is being bought and sold for liability reasons on this website. But one of the things that has bothered me is just how it feels like Lego has, for the most part, left the site, I don't want to say neglected, because Bricklink works well for what it does, but they haven't done much to change it, other than to change it to kind of protect themselves, if that makes sense. And one of the things that bothers me about this is that I also am someone who builds, say, digital files on Studio, for example, which is a free program through Bricklink. It's a wonderful program, essentially has replaced Lego Digital Designer for all intents and purposes, and it's fairly capable, but it's also really unoptimized. And it's really unfortunate because there are times where I just have to close the program entirely because it stops responding 10, 15, 20 minutes into me building a mock for no real discernible reason. So I look at this as a little peek behind the curtain, so to speak, as to what's going on here. Lego has the resources as a company to devote work into something like Bricklink to make it a better place for everyone, to devote time into something like Studio as well. And though I don't know exactly how closely knit the relationship between Lego and the Bricklink team is, some oversight is definitely there. It would be nice to see Lego pump resources into this because at the end of the day, Bricklink is a service for people. It is, in some cases, people's careers. Their entire livelihood is wrapped around this. And so to make something like this more difficult for people, that bothers me. Now, I would have some different feeling if maybe Lego wanted to merge these, but then had a drop-down tab or something so that you could select which ones are in a specific store. Yes, it would still be more tedious than it is right now, but at the very least, it means that someone as a seller could essentially list the item, have a little drop-down checklist, and check off which one they have. And sometimes they're going to be wrong, but even now, sometimes they're wrong. It's going to happen, and that's okay. Not everyone who buys knows exactly what they want. Not everybody that sells knows exactly what they have. It is a part of a risk that you take, not physically seeing the parts in person. Sometimes you're just going to get something that isn't the right piece. And there are means to get around that. Oftentimes you can reach out, and a lot of Bricklink sellers will send you parts. Not all. I don't want to speak for everyone here. Or at the very least, try to work with you to mitigate and fix whatever issue you might have run into. From my own experience, I have had sellers both help when it's come to my own buying of things and certain parts not being in a lot that I bought or the incorrect parts being there. And sometimes they ignore me, and it's fine because most of the time I don't place large orders on the site, but there are many people who do. And so when you're going through buying hundreds of pieces and now noting that potentially a non-0% of the parts you have to buy, you now have to reach out to that buyer or that seller to find out, hey, this is the piece that I'm looking for. Do you have this version of it specifically? Because maybe the version a year before is notably fragile, or the version from a year before doesn't have this connection point, or this piece is a little bit too small in diameter. Think of it like this too. Lego recently modified a specific plate piece. I wish I had it here in front of me. I was just building with one a couple of days ago, but essentially it is a 2x2 plate, modified plate with studs on one side, 2 studs on one side. And they recently modified this piece to actually lower the, I don't remember if it was to lower the connection point or to raise the connection point. Suffice to say, one of them is slightly lower than the other. That's important because it actually means that like certain pieces can fit into places where other ones cannot. But the difference between these two is nearly imperceptible. As far as I'm aware, they have different part numbers, so at the very least, hopefully something like that wouldn't be merged, but many of these pieces have different part numbers as well, and we are seeing them merge, and that's a really big problem. At the end of the day, the only people that I can see this helping is Bricklink, is Lego. For them, it's just less upkeep, right? Because this change just means less things to look over, less things to make sure, hey, is this correct? Is this incorrect? Is this one retired? Is this one not retired? Is this one coming back? Whatever the case, right? It's less for them to parse through, to have listings for, etc. It puts the onus on the buyers and the sellers and takes it off of the shoulders of corporations like Lego and like Bricklink. But unfortunately, my belief is that when you are a corporation like this, when your entire team, when your entire company is built around Lego bricks, you should be doing all you can to make sure that your customers have as much information as possible. Lego puts a lot of attention into the parts that they designed. We should be privy to some of that too. So that's really about everything I can think to say right now. This is by far, if it happens, if it's not reversed, it's going to have repercussions. It is going to change Bricklink forever. But unfortunately, I don't think there's enough people that know about it or care. There are a lot of people who go on Bricklink to look for things, not necessarily to buy or to sell, even less to sell even. And that's unfortunate because it means that there are a limited amount of voices to rectify this issue. And it needs fixed. It needs addressed. This is something that Lego or Bricklink seems to be changing at the end of the day to make their jobs a bit easier, which, fair enough, they should be easier. But it should be easy for us as buyers and sellers too, because for some of us, this is a job as well. And we don't have a corporation behind us. We don't have those resources. Some of us, it's just us. More power needs to be given to the small sellers and the small buyers out there as well. And I include buyers in this because although you can say, buyers aren't necessarily making money from this, that's not necessarily true. Many people who are on YouTube, for example, who create content on YouTube or for other sites as well, blogs and etc., use Bricklink as a resource. And so for them, by proxy, it is also a job. It just needs to be done better. We need to expect better. And that's not asking too much from a company with this much power. But with that said, if you guys do like what you see here, make sure to subscribe. And more importantly than that, even if you don't, spread the word. Definitely check out the videos, both from RR Slugger, who covered the topic originally, also from Duckbricks. There are probably others who have covered it as well, though I have not been able to look around. I've had a very busy morning. And that said, you can always check out links for Discord, Instagram, and Patreon in the description if you want to support the channel and get some perks. But again, Bricklink stuff more important than any of that right now. So hope you guys are having a great day and take care.